In 2003, I frequently visited Dover Transport Museum, where the old step-lift carriage was stationed in the middle of nowhere in a dreadful, dilapidated condition. I went over on a number of times to view the carriage. I couldn't make up my mind if I was making a terrible mistake, because the carriage, if you could believe me, if you could have seen it, you would have had a heart attack. However, one final July morning, I finally made up my mind. The carriage was retrieved on the grounds that the wheels were still intact. Now, had one of those wheels of the carriage been broken or cracked, I'm afraid I would have walked away. But the wheels made me finally decision to retrieve it. And that's just what we did.
Now, currently on the Leas lift, there are two working carriages. This is a third carriage that you were talking about. Now, looking at the Leas lift, there's four different tracks. There must have been four carriages originally. Where's the fourth carriage?
We had the 1885 set that opened in September 1885. 5 years later, queues of passengers were becoming a problem for the shareholders, so they took a decision sometime in 1887 to build a second set next to the existing set, which opened in August Bank Holiday 1890.
And the carriage that you're talking about that you've been involved in the restoration of is one of the 1890 carriages. Does that mean that the two that are running at the moment are the original 1885?
Yes, the chassis are. Of course, you've got to take into account the coach tops are not. They're not the original, but the chassis are.
Okay. Is it the case with these that the, forgive my ignorance, but the chassis is made of metal and the bodywork is made of wood, is it?
Now, our chassis of the 1890 carriage is of steel. Now, let me explain this because this is very important to your listeners. Today, the steel is rolled. In those times, they were hammered together. So there was two layers of steel hammered together in 1890. That's how that chassis today has managed to survive, even though it was in a dreadful condition. But I'm very pleased to say that 70% of that original chassis is on that carriage again today. That's very impressive. Very impressive. And I should also add, we found a marking. Now, our chairman, Mr. Jack Gill, traced that markings to an iron foundry in the East End of London that supplied the steel to build the Burnell ship, which I believe is based in Portsmouth. Now, the steel foundry was in Bow Popular, London. So that, again, that was something. Now, also, I can tell you after months of research, we now know, or I should say we established exactly where those two carriages were built. They were built by Monsieur Hills of Castle Street, Dover, international coach builders. Now, it wasn't long after that their premises burnt down. They were international coach builders. They made the most beautiful horse-drawn carriages, to which one was retrieved 20 years ago from Holland and brought back to this country. Well, there was a press article on it, Monsieur Hills. That first year of August Bank Holiday that the carriages operated, both sets, 1885 and 1890, took passenger numbers of 8,444 passengers. That was a penny affair. That brought into the shareholders £40, which was a colossal sum of money in 1890.